Welcome to the CoinGeek Weekly live stream. I'm clearly not Kurt Wookert Jr., but I'm going to be your host for the next couple of weeks. Patrick Thompson, if you don't know who I am. I'm just filling in for Kurt, while he's having his second kid. So wishing all the best to Kurt and his wife as, they're having their second baby. To start off the live stream, I'd like to thank Satoshi. There's going to be 4 opportunities to earn some BSV during this live stream, no password protected. And also would like to shout out freebsv.com. If you haven't been to freebsv.com yet, that's something you're going to want to give a look to. And today on the live stream, we have somebody I'm really excited to talk to. He has 2 Bitcoin businesses. Both of them are extremely successful, doing a lot of great work on the enterprise front. So you'll see him in just a couple of minutes. And I think here we cut to commercial.
Hi, it's Jimmy Nguyen, founding president of Bitcoin Association. I'm excited to announce that the next CoinGeek conference will be held in Zurich, Switzerland. Join us when CoinGeek will again broadcast live to the world, bringing you exciting new developments in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. Registration is open now, and stay tuned for more details about CoinGeek Zurich.
And we are back with Abendum. Stephan's the founder, and if I'm not mistaken, the CEO of both businesses. And Stephan, what's going on, man? We're happy to have you today.
Yeah, thanks. Very happy to be here. So it's going a lot of things on at the moment. So there is a lot to talk about.
Right, there's a lot of exciting things going on. And, I guess one of the most recent exciting things is you just came from Sudan, and before Sudan, I believe you were in Dubai. So what was going on over there?
Yeah, so first we were down in Dubai for this Ritosa Summit, which is a big summit for investors. We were down there in December as well, together with the Bitcoin Association. So I was there in some panel debates and also having a pitch about UNISOT and my companies there. So super interesting meeting all these kind of people here.
Right. And like you said, you said your company was there. So let's talk a little bit about that. You are at both UNISOT and Abendum. And, a word or a business people often hear about is seafood chain. So, what were you doing before you got into Bitcoin? And once you got into Bitcoin, how did you work your way to launching, starting and running these Bitcoin businesses?
Yeah. So my job before all of this with Bitcoin and blockchain was I was working as an SAP integration architect, as it's called. So I was working with SAP, which is it's the biggest ERP system. An ERP system is then the system that big companies have in the back end to handle salaries and warehouses and all the back end activity in a company. So I was working there for 20 years, helping customers who have SAP systems to integrate their SAP systems with customers and suppliers and banks and so on. And I saw then the problems that all companies have, more or less, to exchange information. It's a very slow and expensive and not very flexible world to integrate system with each other. As we heard also Craig talk about EDI and EDIFACTS and so on, old technologies from back in the 70s. So I was looking for a solution to this problem that I found that all companies have to exchange information. And then I read this famous white paper back in 2000, I think 11, 12 something. Read the white paper from Satoshi Nakamoto, of course, about Bitcoin and blockchain. And it just blew my mind that, wow, here we have this solution to my problem, that we can use this Bitcoin blockchain as a global data layer that every company can use.
I'm happy you said global data layer, because I think what we see is a lot of blockchain and Bitcoin businesses trying to use a blockchain for a variety of different things and a variety of different industries. And of course, the public ledger is an important part of that. But I feel like with you and your Bitcoin businesses, you really nailed in, honed in, and like mastered using, the power that a globally accessible public ledger has. So I think that's really interesting. And, from logistics to now accounting, I really like what UNISOT and Abendum are up to.
Yeah, it was a natural thing. I didn't come from the blockchain and try to find a problem to the solution. I had a problem for many years, a real actual business problem that all businesses have, and I was looking for a solution. And voila, I found the blockchain, and I was just amazed about what this can do by combining this super distributed data layer that the Bitcoin blockchain is with this super centralized ERP system that SAP and Oracle and Microsoft and all of these ERP systems are. And by combining these two systems that normally don't combine very well, we get a sum that is bigger than just the two of them.
Right. And, from there and its integration, I think, was it Seafood Chain we saw first, or was it UNISOT first, or do those two go hand in hand?
So we started with UNISOT, which is the enterprise supply chain management platform, or we also call it enterprise blockchain platform. So that's the actual platform where we are more like a blockchain service provider, just like you have an internet service provider to access internet, the public internet. UNISOT, the platform, works like a blockchain service provider. So what we do is we provide the services that the blockchain can offer to the companies. So we are building an enterprise layer on top of this public blockchain. And the first one was UNISOT, yes. And then, because when we have done this platform, we realized that we can use this for anything, any supply chain, and supply chain is everything. It's food, it's medicine, it's cars, it's phones, it's clothes, it's everything. So I realized that we need to have a test case or pilot case where we can prove that this is actually working, that the platform is actually working. And because we are in Norway, and the second biggest export industry here is seafood after oil. So I thought this little Norwegian seafood market should be good to test with. But I learned since then that it's not a small little Norwegian seafood market. It's a multi-billion-dollar global market, which was a very lucky guess at the same time. And that's when we created the Seafood Chain as a separate company, just as an industry vertical for seafood, built on top of the UNISOT blockchain platform.
That's amazing. And when it comes to UNISOT and Seafood Chain, do you find the companies primarily focused on providing services within Norway at the moment, or where are some of the users located? And on top of that, how has the seafood industry in Norway sort of warmed up to using this technology, and what has the feedback been in that regard?
Yeah, so no, we just started in Norway, but we have customers all over the world. So we have not only Norway, I should say. The response from the seafood industry has been very good. There is a lot of interest in this, and it's interesting to see that it's also IBM are coming out now with their food trust, also targeting the Norwegian seafood industry. So we are kind of competing with IBM Food Trust at the moment, but we are winning. We are winning because we have such a good offer to the customers that is both scalable, it's cost efficient, it's secure, stable, more or less all the things that other blockchains are not. So.
Right. And before we have Kurt's question right here. He says, what is the sales cycle like in the big business space?
Yeah, that's something very interesting, because you see a lot of messages on social media and so that, oh, nothing happens. We launched last February in London, coming out with our minimal viable product at the time, and still now 1 year later, we haven't announced any very big customers yet, because it takes a long time with these big customers, very long lead times before they actually can commit or actually we can go out publicly and say. But we are actually working with a couple of very big customers at the moment that I can't say any names, but hopefully we can announce something later this year.
You know, that I feel like that is something that I see more and more, and especially from the perspective when you're running a Bitcoin business, that you sort of see more of the obstacles or what the sales cycle is like compared to, you know, more of the community who kind of just sees it happen, you know. So maybe they saw you in February and they're seeing you now and they're like, man, I wish they would tell us more. So, you know, I think that's a conversation that people don't have enough. What would you say some of the obstacles are, or, you know, like what doesn't the end user see? What doesn't the BSV community see? Which, you know, might be for some of the reasons behind the scenes that, you know, it's not moving as lightning fast as they'd like it to be, or just a very legitimate, like, hey, this needs to be solved before we can get to this point in the business. Like, what would you say some of those obstacles would be or were?
Yeah, so like the project we're working on now, where we actually have 3 big international companies that we want to engage all of them in the same project. Just the coordination between them to get people, to get access to the right people, to get access to the technology, just to discuss everything and getting meeting times and all that. I used to say, working with big multinational companies, they are agile like an oil tanker. So yeah, it's going forward, but if you try to steer them in a direct direction, it takes kilometers or months before you can start see that they are turning. But we actually see now that they are turning, and they are all engaged here. So it's going forward, but we just have to accept that it takes time in this big organizations to come with this very new technology. But there are a lot of interest of this, and I'm sure it will happen sooner than later.
No, I totally agree with that. And I think that's an important point to make as well. You know, for some other blockchain networks, you can look, and even they're very new, and they're 10 years old. And then we get to Bitcoin BSV, you know, we're just a little bit past 2 years old. So
yeah, right, exactly.
It's beginning nascent stages. But you're right, you know, first, technologically, it can do so much more than other blockchains can. And, you know, now I'm wondering, while you were at the Ratosa Summit and when you were in Sudan, what do you think those countries liked about the solutions that, you know, we can provide on Bitcoin and the solutions that you were providing yourself? What did they like most about UNISOT, Abendum, and just the BSV technology?
Yeah, so I'm all the time only selling solutions. I'm not selling a blockchain. I'm not specifically selling Bitcoin SV. That just comes natural afterwards when we talk to the technical details, because people asks, of course, what blockchain are you using? And then you have to tell them and the reason why we are using it. And I had a number of super interesting discussions with people who didn't know the actual history, what happened with Bitcoin, what happened with BTC and Blockstream, and this whole history with who funded Blockstream and what happened with the protocol, the split and everything. So it was really interesting to have these kind of historical discussions with a number of very prominent people there, and see that they, when they actually understood what is happening and why it's happening, and then when they accepted that, we got very good response from them, and super much positive feedback from them.
Right. And I saw an audience question a little while ago, but I think I have it here. It says, I really want to know more about the Kaching cards. It was an amazing technology, but the project was stalled somehow. And I heard the company later was acquired by you, Stephan. Can you please talk about that a little more from Stephan?
Yeah. Of course, yes. So it wasn't me buying it. It was Abendum. My Abendum company was buying the majority of that company, because it has got in. It's already then got into not very much happened in that company at that time. So I wanted to step in and help. Unfortunately, I hadn't had enough resources to actually do what I'm planning to do with that. But we still have plans to do something with the Kaching card. It's still the only technology doing what they are doing. So we still have plans. We are going to update the community who participated in this. There was a small crowdfunding done by the original company, Bitcoin.no. And we're going to update the community about that very soon.
And, you brought up Abendum there. So I think it would be good to tell those who don't know what Abendum is. And then I think we can work this next audience question into both UNISOT and Abendum afterward. But let's start with what Abendum is. So for those who don't know, what is Abendum?
Right. So I should start from the UNISOT side, because what we do in UNISOT is helping companies exchange business information. So like sending an order, sending an invoice, sending a delivery note. And we do that in what we call BDI, blockchain data interchange. So then when we realize that we are now sending these business documents back and forward, containing not only amounts and so on, but both financial data and non-financial data. So then it was natural to start thinking about what we could do with this financial data that are sent back and forth. So also thinking about this technology that not only Craig is talking about, but also Ian Grigg and others, about something called triple entry accounting. And it's a new word for a lot of people, but triple entry accounting is the next step after double entry accounting. So double entry accounting is what everybody is using today in companies. Double entry means debit and credit. So every company are doing their bookkeeping with debit and credit. What we now do with the triple entry accounting is that we add a third layer between two parties. And this third layer is, of course, the blockchain. So this means that if I'm sending an invoice to you, what I'm doing now is that before I send it to you, I sign it and I put it in this third ledger in the blockchain. So when you receive that invoice from me, you can now verify with the blockchain that it actually came from me. I sign it digitally in the blockchain, and you get it signed. And you can then verify that directly in this public blockchain. You don't have to come to me. You don't have to go to the bank. You can verify it yourself. So here we have, again, this public blockchain, why that is important. And if you then also, when you receive that invoice, if you now can sign it on your side as well, now we have double signing on the blockchain, which means that now we can start automating a lot of things. We can start automating and actually get real-time auditing. So auditing is something that all more or less all companies need to do once a year. And you have an auditor coming in, looking through your books. And what they are doing is normally to call up or to contact your business contacts to verify, did you really send this invoice? Did you pay this invoice? And so on, just to verify from a external partner that your bookkeeping is actually up to date. But by putting this on a blockchain and sign it digitally, that now means that every transactions will be verified in the blockchain. And that makes the auditor's job a lot easier. So we say that we could save everything between 50 and 80% of the auditing costs by using triple entry accounting in the public blockchain. But that's just the first step that we can save money. We can also automate a lot of things to make the whole bookkeeping much more fluent and automated. And what we also can do is to mitigate all of this fraud that are getting more and more, that you are getting false invoices or fake invoices. So we had a case here in Norway this year. A couple of hundreds of millions of kroners were lost because they paid the money to the wrong account. They got a fake invoice with the wrong account number. And by using this triple entry accounting model that we offer in Abendum, you can mitigate that, because all invoices that you get from your business partners are now signed. So if you suddenly get an invoice that are not signed, you see directly that this is probably a fake invoice.
And like I mentioned a little bit before, I think it's, me personally, I think it's one of the best uses of a public blockchain to have that access to information, especially when it comes to things like auditing and the interchange of data, which I would call logistics. I don't know if there's a better word for that, if you like to use a different word than that. Because then, every party who's involved in the transaction has access to the record that they're going to need to have access to eventually. And, the question that was on the screen before this, but I think this sort of plays into it as well, is the first question asked what the cost savings were like in both of these regards in a system like UNISOT and Abendum. There we go. What does it cost you to store data on the BSV blockchain relative to a third party? And then the second question we saw was pretty much asking who you would say the ideal customer for UNISOT or Abendum might be. So do you see auditing firms such as PwC using Abendum?
Yeah, so the last question first. Yes, all auditing companies, maybe the first customers will not be the big four, because they already are working with big multinationals. They already have ERP systems. They have big systems who already do auditing in a rather efficient way. But that's like only the top 20% or 30%. All the rest, where you have mid-size and smaller companies, they are paying a lot bigger part for their auditing, because they don't have these big ERP systems and so on. So this is where we see the most customers here are normal companies, and also bookkeepers. And the second question there, or the first question, was why BSV? Yeah. So, of course, the transaction fee, the transaction costs are very important here. So no other blockchain can offer these low transaction costs for the amount of information that we like to store. But not only the transaction cost. Another thing that is very, very important that maybe not so many people think about is the stability. Stability is super, super, super important for enterprise applications, but even more for auditing and accounting. We cannot use a blockchain or any system that is updated every 6 months. It's just simply doesn't. It's not auditable to do that. So that's why, for us, the BSV blockchain is the only one that we can use.
And is there any chance that maybe we know numbers, percentages, or statistics in the regard to how much maybe an accounting firm or auditor would save by using the Abendum solution, and how much, I'm going to use the word of logistics again, but somebody working in logistics or supply chain management would save using UNISOT or Seafood Chain if they were in the seafood industry?
Yeah, it's a little bit early to give some actual numbers, but there are other scientific calculations on this. So just on auditing, there is a general belief that by using a public blockchain for auditing, you can save between 50 to 80% at least on the auditing costs. But you also get a lot of other efficiency gains by automating a accounting as well. So it could be even more than that. In supply chains, it's maybe, yeah, the cost savings is a big thing, absolutely. But the efficiency gain is even more for companies today. As I used to talk about that, the efficiency of in global supply chains today, from seed to plate or from egg to plate, the efficiency today is less than 20%. And that is in Japan. They are the best one, but they are the most efficient supply chains in Japan. Second best is Germany on 18.5%, and the rest of the world has an efficiency less than that, which means more than 80% is waste in any global supply chains today. And that results in like 1/4 of all assets, all machines, boats and tools and everything are standing still at any given time, not used. It leads to, I think it's $2.5 trillion just locked up in that system. And that is the whole reason why the world economy is not gaining anymore. It's actually stagnating the last 7 to 10 years due to this. So this is the place where we can actually, by making supply chains more efficient by just 5 or 10%, more than 20%, let's say we come up to 30% or something like that, just that gain will gain so much efficiency and in the whole world economy, that the world economy will go better. The sustainability will be much better, because we are not wasting so much energy and money for nothing. So that's the big gains that we can offer. But for each specific company inside a supply chain, what we can offer here with like UNISOT and blockchain system like this is that we can offer them tools and functionality that they simply don't have today. They don't exist. So we can offer them tools like proving their product quality, proving their product provenance in a complete new way that is not possible without a public blockchain.
Now, the word efficiency is interesting to me. So when we increase efficiency in these industries and sectors, does that look like more machines coming alive and being put to work? We got, get out your wallet, scan it while you can, get it while it's hot. I know there's some snipers in here who take these codes and get the BSV before anybody else. But as I was saying, when we use the word efficiency, what does it look like for that space to become more efficient? Does that mean more machines are coming online and being put to use so that more, there's more productivity happening and there's greater output? Or what does efficiency increase look like?
Yeah, so like we see in the seafood industry, but other industries are not very digitalized at the moment. You have a lot of manual work, like just taking a temperature or taking a measure. Sometimes they just write it on a paper. If it's good, they're using like Google Docs so they can share it with someone else. But it's not. There is so much that can be digitalized in all supply chains today. Just take such a simple thing like the customs declaration papers for a container or for a truck. Still today, it's a bunch of physical papers with manual signatures and stamps that someone has to bring. Look at certificate for food, for seafood, for example. Still today, there are couriers driving in a car from city to city with physical papers, driving to the government to get signed and stuff like that. So there is so much that we can make more digitalized and more efficient. The problem has been that the systems that are available are way too expensive, or there are simply no systems available at many places as well. And thanks to this public blockchain with this very cost-efficient transactions, we can now build these systems in a very cost-efficient and a very, very secure way, and we can prove that they are secure. So this is really a a new shift in how we can manage supply chains that simply wasn't possible just a couple of years ago.
And here's a really good audience question from Jay Montague. I know Jay Montague, so shout out to Jonathan Montague right there. And I'm interested in knowing how this applies to to both UNISOT, Abendum, and the industries they pertain to. So, what global regulatory changes would you recommend to simplify Bitcoin, making it easier to use? And something I'd like to add on top of that is, when you bring your solutions into these industries, and the businesses or the sectors know that it increases efficiency, is there any sort of guidelines or maybe anything in the legal landscape that you have to work through before the solution gets implemented? Or what do you see in the regulatory compliance regard to the solutions being built?
That's a really good question. And there is no laws that has to be changed, or regulatory things that has to be changed, because the Bitcoin blockchain is totally legal. The problem we have is opposite. It's more that the regulators do not understand the blockchain technology. They don't understand that it's actually already legal. It's already working. So that's why we are very, very happy for Abendum. We were just taking into the Norwegian financial authorities sandbox. So now we got the chance to just have a discussion with the financial regulatory instances in Norway to more or less to educate them on this is how the blockchain is working. This is what we can do. This is how we can prove things in the blockchain, and that it is not something strange. It's not this big monster that everybody thinks that the Bitcoin crypto sphere is. It's actually totally legal, totally transparent, totally auditable, and that's what we have to do. We have to educate the regulators about that, and they don't have to change any laws.
I think you bring up a really good point there, because that's something I hear often, that a lot of people who have their eyes on blockchain and digital currency, they're up to speed and kind of in the know about what's going on. But when it comes to a regulatory lawmaker perspective, that a lot of education needs to happen on that front. Mm-hmm. So, what I'm interested in hearing is, you as somebody who creates solutions and brings them to these industries, do you have any ideas of how we can make it easier on the education front, or any, to kind of just smooth that transition for the people maybe creating the guidance or accepting these solutions? Like, what can we do to make it easier for them from an education standpoint?
Yeah, I think what Bitcoin Association and also CoinGeek are doing is very, very good and very important. So we are telling people all the time to go to the academy, follow the courses, go and read the wiki from Bitcoin Association. Go and listen to YouTube like the Ryan X. Charles and Craig Wright's Bitcoin Theory. There is actually a lot of material right now that we often recommend to all people we are talking to. Go learn. If you have the interest, there is a lot of information out there right now that you can read, and not least the blog from Craig Wright himself. Very, very important. Maybe sometimes too technical for some people, but if you have gotten people go through the academy and reading some other blogs and see some videos, then the next step could be to go directly to the source and read what Craig Wright is talking about.
And here's a question from Charlie Comet. How do you think companies in the supply chain, such as producers, benefit from the blockchain?
Again, we can build very, very efficient solutions to them. Cost-efficient solution and very secure solutions. Just such a simple thing like BDI, as I mentioned. We take EDI, that is an old technology from the 70s that are global standards, but instead of sending it as text files via FTP or SFTP, we now put it on the blockchain as a standard format, and we transfer it via the blockchain to the receiver. And by doing that, the messages get automatically signed, encrypted, and auditable. And thanks to the cost efficiency of the blockchain, it's also very, very cost efficient to exchange these messages. And we get very, very flexible systems now. We don't have to set up a lot of middleware and middlemen to handle these text files back and forth, but it goes peer-to-peer via the blockchain. So thanks to the blockchain, we can make the much more efficient systems and cheaper systems and more secure systems.
And from dsp28.net, how much concern is there for companies having all or most of their records on a public ledger and visible to everyone?
Yeah,
go for it.
That's a very common misunderstanding, that because we are using a public blockchain, people think that everything is public. No, it's not. It's just like internet. We are all using the public internet, but when I communicate to my bank, to my hospital, or when I was setting up interfaces between two companies, they were still using the public internet, but of course, everything is encrypted.
Right.
So just like we are using Zoom or this one, it's probably encrypted between us here. And the same thing with the public blockchain. Yeah, the blockchain is public, but we are building a business layer on top of that are totally encrypted. So it's only the creator of the information who has full control of his information, who he shares it to or who he sell it to. And that's the second big thing with the blockchain, that we have nano transactions, that we can actually start selling information and buying information for nano transactions.
Yeah, I think you nailed it there, because that's a concern that I see brought up often as well, where, people are worried like, oh, if all the data is on the blockchain, maybe anybody could go in and see your healthcare records. But you're right that it's a business layer, to the point where, the information you create, you can get it to the point where it's only visible to those who you give it access to, and that who you choose to share it with, even though it lives on a public chain. So that's it's something I see brought up often. But yeah, from a business perspective, it's not a concern, because there's ways to protect that private information and the information that only needs to be shared between you and the business whoever you're doing business with, or another person. And here we have a good question from Kurt. So what is an example of a company that you intend for UNISOT to disrupt? Who are the dinosaurs in the space? And then their biggest bottleneck, that Bitcoin makes more efficient.
Yeah, so the big dinosaurs, we have the big blue, the big IBM, of course. They are trying to compete. They're trying to do stuff in the blockchain area, but they're simply not efficient enough. They're not secure enough. They're not cost efficient enough. Specifically, they're offering solutions with their food trace and these other hyperledger solutions that, yeah, they can simply not compete. So we will disrupt them totally, but we will also disrupt other company who are the middlemen today. Like you have a lot of companies today who are the EDI middlemen, who are just sitting in the middle to receive a file from a sender and forward it to the receiver, which is it's not needed anymore, because we have the blockchain as this data layer instead. So all these intermediary companies that is not actually adding a lot of value, but cost a lot of money to use, these are the ones that we are disrupting with UNISOT and with the blockchain technology.
And now what I'm wondering is, I think Abendum is very exciting, and something that I was reading recently, if anybody's interested, it's like a blog post by Arthur Hayes. He updates them frequently, but he was looking at, the industries that blockchain has the ability to disrupt. And something that he honed in on one point was the accounting industry, because at the end of the day, it just so happens that triple entry accounting, a solution like Abendum, is a more efficient way to do accounting, especially when it comes to, if you're a big business and you're going to get audited or you need to do an audit, all the information is there without you hiring this auditor to pick through it and piece it apart. It all just lives on this public blockchain and is recorded in real time. So I know you guys have a lot in store with Abendum. So, what are you up to at Abendum? What are your plans for the future with that? And what can people expect to see come out of Abendum?
So at the moment, we are launching and testing a minimal viable product, which is the easiest and simplest way to do this. And that is by upload an invoice, sign it digitally, and then send that to the receiver, and they can digitally sign it. And we have built that system now, and are starting to implement that together with a number of pilot customers, and the financial authority in Norway also going to be involved in this. And then the next step after that, when we have tested that for a while, we will then start to automate, to integrate with bookkeeping systems that are already out there. So integrating with SAP or Microsoft or other ERP system or bookkeeping systems. So there is a lot to do.
Right. And I know that if I'm not mistaken, you guys might have a couple launches coming our way in the future. So can you speak to those a little bit?
Yeah. The launches we're doing now is on UNISOT side. So we started 2 weeks ago with our first module. So our provenance module. So that is one of the main functionality in UNISOT, the product provenance module, which is this technology that we call smart digital twins, where we create a digital representation of a physical object in the blockchain. And you can see that smart digital twin as a token or a smart contract on the blockchain, a kind of NFT thing.
Right.
We haven't marketed it as an NFT, but it's actually tokenizing a physical asset in the blockchain. So it's an NFT more or less. And then last week we launched then the digital product passport, which is one of the results from the product provenance. So the digital product passport is, as it sounds, it's a digital passport for a product. You scan a QR code on a package, you get up information about that package, that specific package. You get up where it comes from, what kind of ingredient it has, where it has been, how it has been treated, and all important information about a product you can now get up on this digital product passport. And now we will launch a new one on Thursday, and then once a week for another 7 weeks or something like that. Totally 9 modules that we are launching. So on our website, unisot.com, you can see like a calendar. We have launched 2 of the modules, and the other one says coming soon. So we are into this coming soon, coming to an end. So every week we will launch a new product here now, and keeping the excitement up. And there's a lot of very interesting things that are coming up now.
That's exciting. That's a lot to look forward to. So that's a really good thing. There's also one more giveaway left. Have your Simply Cash wallet ready. Have your RelayX ready to scan it when it comes up. I know the people in here are fast, so you want to be ready. Here we have a really good question from Patrick Prince. Abendum is an extension onto the blockchain, which can be added on top of an existing system, if I understand correctly. Do you expect, first, I think that's the first part of the question, so we might want to stop there before we get to the second one. Is that the correct interpretation, understanding of what Abendum is and what Abendum does?
Yes. So Abendum does not replace the accounting system of the current or the current accounting system in companies. It's an add-on at the moment that adds this functionality to get the triple entry accounting. Of course, in a couple of years, maybe we will take more and more part of the accounting systems, but that's for the future. So yeah, it's an add-on at the moment, but we are doing it as automated as humanly possible. So it should be as seamless as possible for any user. They shouldn't actually see or feel that they are using the system. There shouldn't be any extra step or things like that. It should just go in the background. But yeah, so it's an add-on, yeah.
And part two of the question, or the actual question part, do you expect ERP systems and accounting software to be built entirely on the Bitcoin blockchain in the future?
It depends on I think so, but that will be rather far out. I mean, 5-10 years at least before we are there. Because the current like, we are not going to replace SAP anytime soon, or Oracle or Microsoft. They are so integrated in current companies, and has such a big marketplace, a market share. So that will take a very, very long time. But of course, starting integrating and then building more and more functionality, who knows? Yeah, maybe in the future, yes.
Right. To me, that's a loaded question, and it does look far into the future. But, I think that brings us to a good point about Abendum, the efficiency that a Bitcoin-built solution like Abendum can provide. So, we talked a little bit about UNISOT and how those using UNISOT have warmed up to the solution and how they see the efficiencies in it. How would you say accountants and auditing firms and the Norwegian government, if I remember correctly, have warmed up to the Abendum solution, and how they're using the Abendum solution and the feedback that you and your team have gotten about it?
It's still too new to get any feedback. So we started this week with onboarding users on the system. So we haven't got any feedback yet. And also, you have to realize that accounting is yearly based. So the input they do now will be audited next year. So there is long lead times before you can see some very big changes. But of course, we're expecting feedback during the tests that we're doing now, and we're going to follow up all information and all feedback that we get from our users.
And here we have an audience question from Alan Ross. Calvin has stated BSV has a global monopoly in data management. Do you agree?
Yes, maybe not yet, but I think it will have, because we have this global. It is a global data layer that has been in production for over 12 years and never failed. It's the only one that has been in production so long. It's the only one that scales. It's the only one that is economically feasible. So it will take over a very, very big part of that. Absolutely, yes.
And here we have Carbon Craft looking a couple years down the road. He says, where is UNISOT in 5 years? And I'll even add to that and ask, the same question. UNISOT first, then Abendum.
Yeah, UNISOT, it's actually scaring. It's scary to think about it, because there is so enormously much to do, and that's why we are creating this other company as well. Not just UNISOT, but Seafood Chain for seafood, Abendum for accounting. But I have tons of other ideas on industries that we can use for this. But it's important to stay focused as a startup and a scale up. We have to stay focused and get some things out first, and then widen the scope. And but at the same time, sometimes there are things like Abendum that we just couldn't wait, and we had to start that because there is such an opportunity at the moment. And the way I'm doing that now, I'm going to put CEOs on each of these companies that are going to run those companies, because I cannot run all the companies myself. It's just stupid to think that. And I have to keep the control on the top, but have good experts in each industry. So that's a way to grow, and also with partners all over the world. So we are looking for partners that are experts in their industry in different parts of the world. So please contact us if you have if you see a need somewhere. We're happy to talk to you.
And Kurt asked a question that falls into the fold of that, because we've talked about quite a few businesses that you play a significant role in today. We've talked about Seafood Chain, we've talked about UNISOT, and we've talked about Abendum. And Kurt asks, what is the structure of things? Is UNISOT a holding company and the other things are separate applications, or do the apps integrate like a stack?
Yeah, that's a good question. We are right now in a phase of reorganizing our company structure to actually have a holding company on the top in a way that is favorable both for investors but also for the whole company. But it's still it's a kind of stack. So UNISOT is still the platform. It's the base platform for everything. And then on top of that, you have Seafood Chain and you have Abendum. So that's the way it looks like now. So holding company, UNISOT, and then Seafood Chain and Abendum, let's say below that.
And I see we're approaching the top of the hour, and so a couple things that I want to say. I'll get this audience question first. Can you edit or delete data on the blockchain?
You cannot delete data on the blockchain. You can edit data on the blockchain, so to say. You don't change the data itself. It's just like bookkeeping. You have a book. In bookkeeping, you never go back and change something, remove something. So you make a new transaction to reset the first one, and then you make the next transaction, which is the correct one. And you do the same in a blockchain. If I enter the wrong information in a transaction in the blockchain, what I have to do is to make a new transaction saying, oh, that previous one was wrong, ignore it, and then do the right transaction. And what that gives us is the auditability. It means that when you read the blockchain, when you read the last updated record, you have the correct information, but you can also go back and audit what happened with the record before that. So in a way, it's changeable, but auditable. It's not, you cannot delete information there.
Something that I've seen people say, and I like the way they phrase it, they said the blockchain is immutable, but not mutable. And, that basically just captures what you said, So sure, whatever is written on the blockchain is on the blockchain. But later down the road, let's say somebody put something on a blockchain application that was not correct. What you would see was the new transaction correcting that old transaction or making it disappear. But it doesn't mean that transaction is gone. It just means that, they're overwriting it. So you can't go back in and delete an instance and something disappears from a certain block or a certain transaction. But in a new transaction, you can say, hey, this was incorrect. We're updating it here to have the correct information.
You have, of course, if I can explain that, when we are building a business layer on top of that, and if we put encrypted information on the blockchain, if we throw away the private key to that encrypted information, the information can no longer be read. So it's more or less unusable, more or less not there. It is there, but maybe in 50 years, someone can actually decode it because the evolution of encryption and so on. But in general, you could say that if you encrypt something on the blockchain and you throw away the key, it's more or less deleted or lost.
And Alan Ross follows the first question up with, are you concerned that the BSV blockchain will become too large and outpace the decrease in cost of storage over time?
No, I think that's a, how should I say that in a good way? That's the first thing you think that, oh, it's going to be super big. But if you start thinking about how much data, let's say just YouTube or Twitter or Facebook are handling in their channels per day, it's I don't know how much, but it's terabyte of terabyte per second. And what we are building here is enterprise systems, and the economics in this system makes that we will build the infrastructure to this system so that the information that has to be stored will be stored, and there won't be any problem of storing data. With Moore's law, for another, I don't know how many 100 years it will continue growing. It's not a problem in foreseeable time.
And so we've covered a lot about Seafood Chain. We've covered a lot about UNISOT. We've covered a lot about Abendum. And what I'm wondering is if there's just a couple general takeaways that you would like the audience to leave knowing about UNISOT and to leave knowing about Abendum, what would you say those general takeaways are?
I would say that we are working super hard. The whole team is working super hard. There is so much to do, and we are doing a lot of things, but it's not always that you can announce everything at once. And not only for us, but I think for a lot of other companies in this space here, I think we will see a lot of things in this year and next year coming out of the blue without any announcement, more or less. There is so much things happening, and also in our companies. We are, of course, always looking for talents. We are looking for people that have talents in not only in crypto and blockchain, but also in different industry areas. Of course, we are looking for investors. That's why we're also reorganizing our company at the moment, so it should be more easy for investors to come in, and also bigger investors, because we are now coming in. We were very, very lucky with Calvin Ayre and Neil Booth and some other people who unbounded capital who invested in us early. We are now coming into the next phase where we are scaling up and looking for even bigger investors. So people and investors and partners, as I mentioned before, we're also looking for expert partners all over the world. So we are open for and happy to talk to anybody about that.
And for maybe the prospective talent, users of both UNISOT and Abendum, and investors looking to reach out to you because they are a good fit for what you have said, where do they reach out to you? What's the best way to get in contact with each of the businesses?
Yeah, you can always contact me on my Twitter, Bitcoin Devotee. I'm more or less Bitcoin Devotee on all social media here. So, but also my direct mail is Stephan with PH at unisot.io or at abendum.com or seafoodchain.no. Just Google UNISOT or my name, Stephan Nilsson, and you will find our websites, unisot.com, and there you have contact information as well. So I'm rather easy to find on the intranet or internet.
And I'll ask one audience question before I let you go at the top of the hour. So we have DSP28.net right here, and he's asking, do you have any special things or announcements planned for Zurich, which is CoinGeek Zurich? It's coming up in the beginning of June. If you haven't registered yet, you want to check that out. But does UNISOT or Abendum or Stephan Nilsson have anything special planned that will be announced at CoinGeek Zurich? I mean, I guess it wouldn't be an announcement if you spoiled it here. So
right, maybe let's see what happens. So I hope everybody will join the CoinGeek conference, either live or online. I think it's going to be epic. There's going to be a lot of very interesting topics and announcement there. So please join, and maybe let's see.
So in other words, you're everybody who's watching this, everybody who's not watching this, you're going to have to tune in to find out. It wouldn't be a special announcement if he told you guys now. That would just be an announcement. So you got to stay tuned to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
With that being said, it's the top of the hour. I'm going to let you go, Stephan, but thank you so much for joining us today to talk about UNISOT, Abendum, Seafood Chain, and all things blockchain and Bitcoin. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I really appreciate being here. And I wish all the best to Kurt and his wife and new child on the way as well. So, yeah, Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I agree with that. So first, shout out to Kurt. You know, Kurt's on here. He kills it every single week. I'm filling in. It's like when, you know, it's like when your favorite news anchor goes on vacation and the guy who comes on at 11 o'clock at night has to fill it in the morning. Or when you go to school and, you know, the teacher who's always there is filled in with the substitute teacher. That's what's going on for the time being. But shout out to Kurt. Shout out to his wife. Shout out to their child that's on the way. And, you know, shout out to everybody who tuned into the CoinGeek live stream today, because whether you liked me here or not, you're stuck with me for about a week or two. So make sure you tune in next week. We have a very interesting guest, maybe one of the most interesting men in Bitcoin, who will be telling us all sorts of things that you don't know about his business. That's something you're not going to want to miss. Look out for more information on that. And I think it'd be fun if you went online, sent a message to CoinGeek or myself, trying to guess who it is that's coming on who's coming on the live stream. So that's something you're going to want to check out. Other than that, you know, I do not have a sign-off message prepared, so I think that's just the end of the live stream. But thank you so much for everybody who joined me today, because you'll be seeing me next week at 2 p.m. EST.
Hi, it's Jimmy Nguyen, founding president of Bitcoin Association. I'm excited to announce that the next CoinGeek conference will be held in Zurich, Switzerland. Join us when CoinGeek will again broadcast live to the world, bringing you exciting new developments in the Bitcoin SV ecosystem. Registration is open now, and stay tuned for more details about CoinGeek Zurich.